Hey everybody, I have a video here for you, and I wasn't planning on making a video till closer to the weekend when I'm going to take you up to the Great Pyramid and just babble about that place as long as it takes. But I thought this might be a good thing to lead into that video with. And I was watching a TV show a couple nights ago that really kind of turned my stomach and made me laugh at the same time. And it was this guy here. It was Mark Lehner on a show called Unearthed, I believe it was, on Discovery Science Channel. I think it was. Maybe some of you saw that. But he was bringing forward this new revolutionary theory that the stones that made up the Sphinx temple were quarried out from right around the Sphinx. That's something we've always known. There isn't any dispute about that. And this TV show tried to make it evident that this proves that Khafre built the Sphinx temple, and that show was so insulting to my intelligence. And then I was talking to a friend on Skype last night, and she sent me this article. Hey, have you seen this? And here, Mark Lehner, did the Egyptians create a canal and a port to bring stone to the Great Pyramid? And this is a new article. Well, 3 or 4 years ago, I was uploading a video on some stories that were coming out about ports being found around the Great Pyramids of Giza. And he's coming out with this. This is just weird. And here is just a top picture. And I'm going to play a clip from John Anthony West on the Joe Rogan Experience here in just a second. But some of these pics in this article are pretty interesting. It says there was an ancient port, and it gives credit to the name of this area as Khinkaway's town. And of course that is what I say is that original pyramid, original fourth pyramid of Giza. And that is right here. And that's what they attribute this port to. And I just want to show you this. This is from Serpent in the Sky. This is the Sphinx temple. And you see the slope strata that this is built into with these megalithic over 100-ton blocks. Well, here is Khinkaway's, what they say is Khinkaway's pyramid or tomb or mastaba. But and here are the facings. The facing stones are perfectly horizontal here. But the slope of this matches perfectly with the Sphinx temple, and I'm saying these were built at the same time. That is very evident to me. But here is Mark Lehner, and I've made one video on Zahi Hawass and Mark Lehner, and this was a couple years ago, and I am just not sure what I said, but I'm sure I ranted a little bit, and this is when I didn't have very many subs. So, who is Mark Lehner? Well, he is like the American general of the Egyptologists over there. The one who really, they toe the company line as far as associating every monument to dynastic Egyptians. And he is the one when in, I think it was 1992, John Anthony West and Dr. Robert Schoch presented evidence that erosion on the Sphinx temple was thousands of years older than the Fourth Dynasty, proving the Sphinx was much, much older than what these people say. And he is the guy that laughed at Dr. Robert Schoch and John Anthony West and said, show me a civilization, you know, show me the potsherds, even though every geologist agreed that the evidence showed that the Sphinx temple was thousands of years older. The geologists agreed. But these archaeologists were just mocking and little smug little whatever. But basically, into my research, and I really wanted to research this. Who is Mark Lehner and what is he all about? Well, he really just goes around kissing ass of the Egyptian Antiquities Council, and he gets special privileges. And people who are into the so-called alternative history, I think they really need to get along with this guy in some respect, but I can just tell their disdain towards this individual, and he was the one mocking Dr. Robert Schoch when he presented the geological evidence. And of course, in the meantime, we have Gobekli Tepe being discovered. What does Mark Lehner say about that? Well, let's play a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience.
We were talking about this before the podcast, and this is a really fascinating aspect of this discussion. Was when I first became aware of your work was that Charlton Heston narrated documentary about the aging of the Sphinx, the mystery of the Sphinx, which I believe was on NBC. What I thought was shocking was when Dr. Schoch was speaking to that Egyptologist who was saying, what evidence is there of a culture that existed 7,000 years before ancient Egypt? There's no evidence. He's like, there is no, and he was laughing. And the way he was doing, there was so much ego involved in what he was saying. I was like, wow, this is not how I would picture an Egyptologist laughing. Well, that got me curious. I started getting into it. Why would anybody think like that? And then I realized, oh, these guys write books and they teach lectures and they teach classes based on this information that they're teaching, and now this information has been shown to be not true anymore. When Dr. Schoch was showing this water erosion, he was saying that this was all before the discovery of Gobekli Tepe. And once they discovered Gobekli Tepe, now they know that there is a sophisticated structure capable of massive stone circles that was 12,000 years ago at least, when it was intentionally buried. So it could have easily been several thousand years old then. We don't know. But we know at least 12,000 years ago, someone was capable of incredible design and incredible stone structures with three-dimensional animals carved into these stone structures, which is very sophisticated. Now, has that guy been talked to since then, and has he amended his position on it?
As far as I know, he hasn't. And I know Lehner reasonably well. We're civil to each other. And it won't be long now. I mean, he's one of the generals of the in the army of the idea whose time has not yet gone, and his time is coming up pretty shortly.
Does he address Gobekli Tepe now? I mean, because his whole position was there was no civilization. What evidence is there? Well, now that you have this evidence, what does he say? Well, maybe
I haven't actually spoken to him, and I don't know if anyone has. I see him in Egypt every once in a while. I don't know if anyone has, and I ran into him fairly recently. I just said hello, and I don't think I'd necessarily want to bring it up with him off the record. I'd rather have him with the cameras on us,
right,
and just see what happens. But
right.
Otherwise, he's a dead duck.
Now, I really don't like making videos criticizing people, but when it needs to be done, that's when I'll speak up. And what I saw on that TV show, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. That he was like proposing this new theory that everybody knows is just a fact already and is known for a long time. And then this article, I found this fascinating, and I've learned a lot from Mark Lehner. He knows his Egyptology. He knows his stuff, but it's just recognizing this previous history that he'll just totally shut his mind off to and provide lame facts to support his theory. He says that Khafre built this great structure here, one of the greatest structures in the world. It's almost identical to the Great Pyramid in size and stature, and sits on a base that nobody can really explain how they did that, and it's unbelievable. But he says Khafre built this structure, but did not inscribe his cartouche, his life story, anything that an Egyptian pharaoh would do to a great structure. So he had whoever built this huge structure in God knows how many years, and then didn't inscribe himself anywhere on the monument. That is absolutely ridiculous, Mr. Mark Lehner, and you are the one that should be laughed at. And one question that my subs and a lot of people bring up is, how did they cut some of these stones that make up the Great Pyramid and these other structures in the Sphinx Temple where they used granite? And back during the Egyptian period, they had hammers and copper chisels. And anybody who has seen copper chisels used on granite, just after just a few strikes, the copper starts disforming and becomes dysfunctional. But Mr. Lehner's theory is, well, they just had a whole line of copper chisels, and they would just replace them and hammer a few times and then replace it and replace it. So they must have had millions of copper chisels. Oops. I think I hear my subs laughing at you, Mr. Lehner. Now, this whole article is about his new theory of how they might have used the waterways to transport the stones up to the Great Pyramid. And would they have built these ancient harbors that there's clear evidence of just for that small time of the year there was flooding, or would they have built these harbors into the way the water was back then, all the way up to this side of the Nile? And that would have been about 9,600 years ago, when the whole Nile River Valley was full of water. You know, we see a small Nile River compared to the huge Nile River Valley. Well, there's something Randall Carlson talks about called scale invariance, where these riverways didn't migrate to the east or migrate back and forth. They just dried up, and that's where they sit today. So I think what Mark Lehner is producing here kind of supports the theory of a much more ancient time in Egypt. But his work should really be looked into. And I just want to mention this, the whole erosion on the Sphinx. This is John Anthony West's Serpent in the Sky, and I will leave a link for this, and you can read this. Now, I just want to provide information on this video for you people to look into this. This is the survey that Mr. Mark Lehner was responsible for, and kind of his response to the Robert Schoch, John Anthony West evidence of the erosion on the Sphinx. This was funded by a grant from the Edgar Cayce Foundation. And John Anthony West puts in his book here, strange intellectual bedfellows indeed, in that paragraph. But this is the response to the geological work done by Robert Schoch, I believe. And this is lame. This research, it contradicts each other. This is about the erosion on the Sphinx that Robert Schoch says was water-induced. And I'll let you people read this for yourself. I'll leave links below. This should be looked into. These are the people responsible for giving you the history in Egypt. And this is the stuff that they produce. And these are the ones laughing at people like Dr. Robert Schoch and John Anthony West. So, I'm going to talk about this. Damn right. Now, I will leave the links below to a few different things, but this actually isn't a bad theory, or if Mr. Lehner produced these drawings, but he is responsible for this theory, supposedly. But I think taking stones by water up to the pyramids, people have been talking about that for a long time. And as far as the Sphinx, on that TV show, it said, well, this proves that Khafre built the Sphinx temple because it's Khafre's face on the Sphinx. Well, no, it isn't Khafre's face on the Sphinx. John Anthony West has gotten a forensic artist that works for the police to totally debunk that it's Khafre's face. You shouldn't be smiling, Mr. Lehner, because your little theory of history is about to go down the tubes. So let's review. First of all, I have learned a lot from Mark Lehner. He has been working in the Egyptology field for many, many years. He knows a lot of stuff about Egyptian history, and I respect him for that. He met Zahi Hawass through the Edgar Cayce Foundation, and ever since, he has been towing the company line in Egypt. He is the one that laughed at Dr. Robert Schoch and John Anthony West, saying that there is no civilization that goes back 12,000 years that could have been responsible for it. There is no evidence of one. Gobekli Tepe has been found, and he has been silent on that issue. He says a pharaoh named Khafre built the middle pyramid at Giza, though he did not inscribe his cartouche, his image, his life story. There was not a sarcophagus found with Egyptian stuff on it. This pharaoh, and all they wanted to do is be immortalized. He didn't immortalize himself anywhere on the middle pyramid. He says that Khafre is the face of the Sphinx, though a forensic artist has totally debunked that. And geological evidence that every geologist agrees with says the Sphinx is thousands of years older than the 4th dynasty. This guy is a major toer of the line in Egypt. He has his nose buried deeply in the ass of the Egyptian Antiquities Council. That's what my research has found. That's what I'm reporting to you. I don't like making videos criticizing people because God knows some of my early videos could be criticized. But I'm always honest with my subscribers because that's what they want and that's what they deserve. Hope you thought this was interesting. You all have a very nice and safe day.